OpenAI didn't even give Anthropic more than 10 minutes of glory by releasing GPT 5.3 Codex just minutes after the release of Opus 4.6 model. And honestly, when you factor in all the major releases that we've had in just these two companies in the past year, it can be quite exhausting to keep track of all of them. So today, we're going to get straight to the heart of why this matters and discuss the technical breakthroughs. Welcome to Caleb Writes Code, where every second counts. One of the biggest gripes that developers have when it comes to large language models is when it comes to context window. For example, Google's Gemini offers 1 million tokens, OpenAI's GPT with 400,000 tokens, while Anthropic's previous model only offered 200,000 tokens. And while agentic applications like Claude Code does help manage its own context pretty efficiently, 200,000 tokens was certainly lagging behind in comparison to the rest of the pack. And you might think scaling the context window should be easy, but in reality, there are drawbacks along the way. For example, while Google's Gemini offers 1 million tokens, as you can see, the accuracy of the model's ability to actually retrieve its context well decrease as more of the context gets used up. Here, you're seeing how Gemini 3 actually scored around 25% in accuracy by the time it hits the 1 million context window. And you might think this is quite pathetic, but the highest score at the time was only 32.6% accuracy for 1 million context, which is not that high when you think about it. Well, until Anthropic released Opus 4.6 that scored a whopping 76% on the 1 million context window. So not only was Anthropic able to jump their context window from 200,000 to 1 million tokens in their model upgrade, they also more than doubled the performance in preventing what's called context rot. Just to briefly touch on this metric, which is called MRCR, it's often referred to as a needle in the haystack metric, where you place repeated facts embedded throughout the context window and ask the model to identify correctly the position of the fact buried somewhere in that context window. And the 8 needle here refers to the difficulty of the problem, where 8 identical facts are embedded directly in the context, making it that much harder for the model to keep track. So scoring 76% accuracy while using 1 million context usage is extremely impressive for Anthropic. Let's quickly switch to OpenAI's GPT 5.3 Codex release. While OpenAI maintained its 400,000 context window for this model, there were certainly few noteworthy achievements that OpenAI made on this release. First is a 25% increase in speed when it comes to inference. One of the biggest gripes that people had about the Codex model in comparison to Opus was just how slow the model actually was in real time. Another impressive achievement that OpenAI made was its ability to actually navigate itself well in the terminal. We know that ever since Claude Code was released back in February 2025, and even Codex CLI, which was released in April 2025, terminal-based agents have sort of been the de facto in where these models actually lived and breathed. So being able to actually navigate itself in that environment is critical. One of the ways to test this very thing was having a series of isolated environments where you can just drop the model to these isolated environments and give it an objective. Then we can test the model to see if it can solve its way out by running the necessary terminal commands. This kind of benchmark is called Terminal Bench, where the second edition had 89 of these isolated environments, and models are dropped into each Docker containers to see if they're able to solve varying tasks like building repositories, setting up a server, training LLMs, or just about anything that people would actually use them for in real life. OpenAI jumped from 64% in their previous GPT 5.2 Codex to 77% in their GPT 5.3 Codex model. Well, while the official records show that they actually scored 75%, the difference is quite huge in comparison to Opus 4.6. OpenAI also said that they used the GPT 5.3 Codex to assist in building itself, which certainly points one step towards singularity, where someday AI could train itself faster than we can, and the pace of innovation at that point will spiral so fast that AI will outpace our ability to contribute towards its self-improvement. Let's now compare the iteration speed from OpenAI and Anthropic. While Anthropic's Opus line has been innovating at a speed of 2 to 3 months per each iteration, OpenAI has been narrowing down its iteration speed from 4 months to 2 months and now to 1 to 2 months in iteration speed. I think seeing model releases in this frequency of every month or even every other week is something that we could see in the near future. And the competition at that point will get even more fierce between all the frontier labs. Pricing is also something that OpenAI certainly has huge advantage over Anthropic, where the GPT-5.3 Codex is offered at $1.75 per million input tokens and $14 for a million output tokens, while Opus 4.6 is offered at $5 per million input tokens and $25 per million output tokens. And the word on the street is that Opus 4.6 is actually very token hungry. So while most people use ChatGPT's $20 plan to access their Codex models with enough room for credits, it's likely that Opus 4.6, especially given its large 1 million context window, the same $20 plan from Anthropic might not actually suffice given their 5-hour limit window that refreshes each time. What do you think about these releases and the juxtaposition between OpenAI's GPT-5.3 Codex against the Anthropic Opus 4.6? Which do you prefer more?